The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is, excuse me, the new home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It's also the new home for Autism Live. We have to start today's show. So much has happened since the last time we were with you on Thursday. We want to start by giving our most heartfelt well wishes to everyone around the world in hopes that we can all have a peaceful and a better future than what we certainly have experienced in the last 5 days to people in Paris, and of course to people in Beirut and around the world where there are terror attacks happening. It is unthinkable, and so we give our well wishes to everyone who has been affected by that, which is all of us, and hope for peaceful resolutions to what is obviously a very complicated situation. We are here, though, to talk about autism, another complicated situation. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. One of the other things that happened in the time since we were last with you on Thursday, the CDC came out with a new report about a new survey that suggests that 1 in 45 children in the United States is on the autism spectrum. It's come under a great deal of fire, this particular survey, and people are poo-pooing that there is this incredible increase in the rate of autism, and we're going to be talking a little bit later on the show about why it's coming under fire and what the media is saying that's just a tad misleading. We're going to have a wonderful expert, in my opinion, that is going to be with us to help us to sort out what exactly is going on, give us a foothold for that. But I want to remind you that all the things that we're going to be talking about today, it's all meant to be interactive. We want you to participate with us. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking, feeling. And there is no holds barred here. If, you can write in and say, I'm just having a pukey day. You can write in and say, I'm having an okay time. We welcome it all. And we also welcome it whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, or a person who is on the spectrum, or you could be the aunt or uncle of someone who's on the spectrum. We all have one thing in common. We want to get to progress. So Kelby is going to show you some of the different ways that you can interact with us, while I'll remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. If you go there, there's so many things to do. Please sign up for our email so that you can get our free monthly newsletter and our free weekly viewer guide. But there is also a blog there where we're going to be posting a recipe a little bit later on today. I'm very excited about that. And many things to do on that site. But you can be watching the live show there just by clicking on the little arrow on the computer screen, and that will give you either the live show if we're live in that particular moment, or it will give you the most recently recorded live show. That show plays on a loop until we add the next show. Now, if you want to see further back than that, there is a playlist button up in the upper left-hand corner. If you click on that, you have the ability to scroll through the 100 most recent shows to take a look at what's there. Those are the total complete shows, and the great thing about that is that when you click on them, you can fast forward through things that you want to fast forward through. You can rewind, you can pause, which I think is a lovely feature. I know my husband wishes he could pause me on a regular basis. Just hold that thought, honey. I'm like, I'll be right back, and then finish your sentence. Imagine what it is like living with me, because I frequently don't take a breath when I'm speaking. In any case, now, if you wanted to look at just highlights, which is a really good way to watch the show too, you can go to our YouTube channel to check out our highlights. And of course, there's lots of other ways. And I believe Kelby has been showing you what those other ways are. Now, I will tell you, though, that on our live feature, one of the things that's particularly wonderful to the side of the computer screen is something we call the live feature. When you go there, put your cursor in the box that says your question, have a ball, type whatever you'd like. I told you, we take anything, any comments that you want, good, bad, indifferent. You could just say, I'm feeling alone, right? Which is kind of what somebody had written to us over the weekend. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Because you know what? You're not alone. I know it feels like it. I certainly felt alone a lot of times early days on this journey. Because I always like to remind you, while I'm here and I'm hosting the show, and we have many experts that are on the show. We're going to have some great experts for you throughout today's show, but I'm not one of them. I'm a parent, so I know firsthand what it's like to feel alone in this. But I got good help. And I'm here to help you get the resources that you need, because I know that they'll look different, perhaps, than what we needed to do, because it's all different, not one size fits all. But I always like to tell you that we do this together, right? Nobody has to do this alone. There are many people that are going through, unfortunately, some of the harder things that you're going through. They have compassion for you. They're there to listen. I want to tell you, come on, we hold hands, right? Si se puede, we can do this, and we are doing it one day at a time. Okay, we like to, as I mentioned, start the show with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. Yes, the jargon du jour is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out, excuse me, what does that mean? Why are you using that word in conjunction with me and my family? And how can it possibly help me to get to the progress that I'm looking for? Now, today's jargon term, get ready, fasten your seatbelts, right? It's going to get bumpy. Single case agreement. Hello, I'm sorry. When I decided to be a parent, I did not know that I was going to have to learn a bunch of jargon that had to do with autism and psychology. And nobody mentioned that there was going to be insurance jargon that I was going to have to wade through also. Now, if they had told me, I still would have signed up to be my son's parent, but I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have lit my hair on fire. Single case agreement. Doesn't that just make you shake in your shoes? Let's see if we can tear it down a little bit. We always like to start jargon with an actual definition. So here's our actual definition of single case agreement. An agreement between a provider and an insurance carrier in which they agree to provide services for just one specific person. Okay, you know, it's an okay definition, but I don't really know how this helps me. Let's move on to our working definition. Single case agreement is a way in which you get the insurance company to look at your child as an individual instead of being tied to rules that are rigid. This is a really important thing to know, because I believe that sometimes getting what you need happens from asking and knowing what the right question is to ask, right? So we're in open enrollment period for almost everybody right now. Everybody's trying to figure out what the insurance thing is. I want to remind you, Bryce Myler is going to be here next Tuesday, the second hour, full hour, taking on the insurance. If you haven't made your decisions about your open enrollment, you're going to want to send in your insurance questions and tune in. Bryce is going to answer questions live on the show next Tuesday, an autism insurance expert. So, and she'll talk to us about single case agreement. But what we see with insurance is that, you know, it's this document that comes, and there are rules, and there's graphs, and there's columns, and tables saying, you know, that does cover this, it doesn't cover this provider, not this provider, right? But there is something called a single case agreement. So you may be told, oh, well, your provider doesn't, your insurance provider doesn't have this particular ABA provider in network. So you'd have to pay out of network rates, right? Which you think, oh, well, I just can't do that. So you move on to the next provider. Except that the little asterisk after everything is that there is something called a single case agreement. So if your insurance isn't working for you for whatever reason, and it may, a lot of times the reason why single case agreement happens is because of location and access to services. Because if your insurance provider doesn't have a provider that can take you on, that does what their insurance says that it will cover in network, then they will, in many cases, do a single case agreement with somebody who is out of network for you to get those services. A lot of people have been able to use a single case agreement to get what they need. And if you didn't know that you could ask for this, how would it ever occur to you? So for anybody who is out there who has insurance woes, and you think, well, I'd really like to be here or do this. A lot of times what we see, people will say to me, well, I wanted to be with Card, but Card isn't in network. Just make sure that you've explored this avenue, because many people can get a single case agreement. As more ABA providers are becoming online and they're able to take on clients, we're seeing less and less of this, so you need to know that. But for instance, if you're being told, well, your insurance covers ABA, and you go to all the ABA providers that are in your area that are in network, and all of them tell you that it's a 6-month to a year waiting list, your insurance then will make a single case agreement if you ask for it and fight for it, for you to get a provider that doesn't have a waiting list. So get your good quality ABA and get it immediately. Use the single case agreement. This is some good jargon worth knowing. Single case agreement. All right, moving on. We always have a question for you. Our question today, drum roll, what do you think of the CDC new numbers? Are they accurate? This is what the big turmoil was about. All the media were saying, well, is this really accurate? We have always said in the past when we looked at CDC numbers, well, this study said this and this study said this, but the CDC had been doing their numbers the same way for a really long time. So we kept on being able to say, well, we're comparing oranges to oranges instead of apples to oranges, and look, there's an increase. And now the CDC changed the way they did it. I don't know whether that's deliberate, but there's a huge increase. CDC said, according to their new survey, 1 in 45. We're going to talk with Lisa Ackerman a little bit later on in this hour. Lisa is the founder of TACA, an amazing organization, and I consider her a true expert. Writes an amazing blog called Real Help Now. So Lisa's going to help us to sort through, wade through, and sort out why is everybody so fatutzed about these numbers being accurate or not being accurate. I'm one of the people who's fatutzed. So I'll have I will have an opinion about that as well. All right, moving on. We always have a topic for the week, and in amongst everything that is going on, my goodness, there's a lot going on. We are here in the United States getting ready to celebrate a rather huge holiday here that's called Thanksgiving, giving thanks. So I thought we would start a week early, because if anything could help right now, it would be gratitude for the things that we have. And while there are many things that are in question in this moment and many things that you might be lacking, gratitude is the word of the week, right? And if we can hang on to that, that's an amazing thing. I have an opportunity, because I'm so lucky, I have an opportunity to speak on many occasions with therapists and with case managers and people who work with children on the autism spectrum. I do a talk called The Parent's Perspective on behalf of all of us. And I tell the story of how we came to find good quality ABA services, and it's a really heartfelt story for me, because it changed our lives. But I was having to work a job that I really didn't like. That was not in my field. I had a master's degree in theater, and I, taught theater for years, taught college theater, and really felt like I had something to share in that venue. And I did stand-up comedy, and that's where my interests in my life were. And then my child was diagnosed with autism. Hello, let's change everything, right? And in order to have a job that I could have that helped my family put food on the table and do things, and be available to take my son to the therapies that he needed, I couldn't do those jobs anymore. They were at the wrong time of the day or night, and we couldn't get daycare. We'd been turned down, and I needed to be there. you know, and I put on my big girl pants and said, I need to be there, so what job can I do? And I was working a job with Closet World. And I was really in flux about knowing what to do about ABA, but I got sent to a home through Closet World. It wasn't through any ABA provider. Through Closet World, they sent me to a home, and I arrived at that home in such a feeling of lack and a completely devoid of this word here, gratitude. And I was angry at the world and angry at life. And when I got to this house that the Closet World was sending me to, it was beautiful and it made me angry, because how could somebody have a beautiful house like that when my life was a mess? And I looked in their backyard, and as a parent, you want to be able to give everything to your child. And I looked in their backyard, and they had a play structure that wasn't a swing set, it was a pirate ship. And my kid loved pirates. And I tell you, quite honestly, that there was such lack in my heart that I, in that moment, hated those people, hated them, because they had a pirate ship and I had a child with autism. And I, just being honest, because it's easy when you don't have something to be mad at somebody who does. And I went into their home to help them with a closet, and I came out with a new lease on life, because their child had autism and their child was making improvement, and they're the ones who introduced me to CARD. And I remember when I left their house a few hours, and I never did a closet for them. That didn't happen, because they ended up giving me the master class in how to be an autism parent. But I remember when I left that house, looking back at the house, didn't hate them or their house anymore, right? And certainly didn't hate the pirate ship, because I had gratitude. And instead of when I walked in their door, I was in that I have nothing. There is nothing that I have. And when I walked out of their house, just by virtue of the information that they gave me, I had hope. And if all you have today is hope, be grateful for that, because there are people who are in a moment where they don't even have that. And we have that here, and we have that to spare. And so if you don't have any of that, let me give you some. I'm not loaning it to you, I'm giving it to you. There is hope. No matter what, there is hope. And then once we feel the hope, then we get down to the business of how do we make that a reality, which is what we're going to do in today's show and every show. So here's kind of what's on the agenda today. We have a very special guest for the second time on the show, David Geslak. I'm not saying his name right, I know that. He's going to be talking with us about an exercise program. He is from the Exercise Connection, but he's got an app. And it's an app that can make a difference for our kids wanting to exercise. I think it might be something that can make a difference for me. Of course, we have Autism News, our very special guest that's going to be with us in just a little while. After the interview with David, we are going to have Lisa Ackerman. She's going to be talking with us about these new numbers, 1 in 45. That's what the CDC is saying. And why are people saying, well, but... right? When are they going to listen? And then in our second hour today, we have Dr. Linda Copeland. We fondly refer to her as the unicorn, and I love that somebody sent a question and said, this is for the unicorn. Why do we call her a unicorn? Because she's a developmental pediatrician. Well, there's lots of those. That's not a unicorn, right? She's also a board-certified behavior analyst. Well, there's lots of board-certified behavior analysts. It's just that put the two together, and no, I'm sorry, that's a unicorn. So Dr. Copeland's going to be answering your questions. We've got a bunch of questions already, but we probably could take a couple of more. Send them on over. That's what we're doing here today. We're putting the hope into action and seeing how we can't make a difference. So stick with us. Hold hands. We're going to do this together. More after these messages.
Hi everyone, Thanksgiving is fast approaching and we thought it'd be really fun to teach you a gluten-free stuffing recipe with help from Breads from Anna. Now this is a 2-day recipe, and so day one we're going to make this bread. Here's what you're going to need. 1 package of Breads from Anna bread mix, 1 packet of active dry yeast, 3 eggs, 1 tablespoon apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1/4 cup of oil, half a cup of warm water, 1 teaspoon ground sage, thyme, rosemary, 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, and then a pinch of tarragon, onion powder, marjoram, and garlic powder. On day 2, when we put the stuffing together, here's what you'll be needing: 6 tablespoons of butter, half a bulb of fennel, 1 chopped onion, 2 chopped carrots, half a cup of gluten-free chicken broth, 1 teaspoon of ground sage, thyme, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt and pepper. All right, step 1, we're gonna dissolve our sugar into our water. And then we're gonna go ahead and add our active yeast. We're gonna dissolve all these together. So we're gonna just set this aside. Now we're gonna take our bread mix right on over to our mixer. So first things first, we're gonna put all our liquids together before we add in our dry bread mix. We're putting in 3 eggs, our oil, apple cider vinegar, water, and our water, yeast, sugar mixture. We're gonna blend these all together. So once our liquids are all mixed together, we're gonna go ahead and add our bread mix. We're also gonna add all of our spices now. Okay, now that our bread's been mixed, we're gonna spoon this into a bread dish and we're gonna let it rise for about an hour. Okay, so now that we've let this rise for about an hour, we're gonna bake it at 375 for another hour. All right, it's been an hour, so let's grab our bread out of the oven. We're gonna let this cool for a little bit, and then we're gonna actually cube the bread, and we're gonna toast it in the oven just a little bit longer to dry it out so that when we add it to the vegetables, it'll make a really great stuffing. So as you can see, we've toasted our little breads here in the oven, and now what we're gonna do is saute some of these vegetables so that we can mix it in with the bread and make our final stuffing combination. So we'll start with the butter. So we're gonna start with our onions so that we can make sure these are good and cooked before we add the other vegetables. They cook a little bit longer. Okay, those are looking pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and add our fennel, our carrots, our garlic, and then all our spices. So you're gonna wanna cook this until the carrots especially are nice and soft. Our vegetables are pretty soft here, so what we're gonna do is go ahead and mix this with our bread. We're also gonna go ahead now and add our half a cup of broth. So once these are mixed together, we're gonna go ahead and pour it into our greased baking dish, and we're gonna bake it an additional 20 minutes at 350 degrees. All right. Okay, I think it's ready. La, la, la. All right, and we can add a little garnish here. Perfect, and it's ready for Thanksgiving dinner. To learn how you can win some breads from Anna, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live. Until next time, happy holidays.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so thrilled that we have back a guest that we had on before. It's been 2 years. I can't believe that, how time flies. But David Geslak is here with us. He is from the Exercise Connection, and he's here to talk to us about an app that is revolutionary. So David, first of all, welcome back to Autism Live.
Thank you for having me again.
Thrilled to have you. So talk to us about this new app.
Yeah, so the last time we talked, I probably talked to you guys about our visual exercise system, our paper-based system.
Yeah, it was like flashcards, correct?
Exactly. There was just nothing for exercise. But then after spending a couple years in developing that, we have a lot of schools and families and people using it. We quickly realized that we needed to go to technology. And we spent the last year and a half developing Exercise Buddy. The team that developed Exercise Buddy was myself, a speech language pathologist who also just happens to be my wife.
I'm playing with the app. That's why it's making noises, because I am listening to you, David, but I can't take my hands off of it because it's so much fun. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, and then a special education teacher who works for the Exercise Connection, Ashley Palomino, and then a technology expert who has a personal connection with autism, who really transformed its usability from the first version we had. We now have 6 universities using it. 2 are doing research with it, um, and we are just excited that people and parents and OTs and are using it. But we're still, Shannon, is we're still challenged with educating. I know that's what you guys do on Autism Live, is just continuously educating parents and letting them know what exercise or about anything autism related. And parents are still uneducated, or need to be educated, I should say, but also even the schools on what exercise can do to benefit these kids. There is a research study that 16 combined that show that exercise has a 37%, a 37% improvement in autism symptoms, specifically behavioral and academic improvements. So in the app, in Exercise Buddy, there's a teaching tool section, there's a body system section where we really want to give the schools no excuse to not have this in their classroom, whether it's a PE classroom, or a special education classroom, because exercise is that important for our kids.
Absolutely. And we just want to say that the app is called Exercise Buddy, and where can people get it, David?
It's right now. It's only on the App Store.
Okay.
We only have it available for iPads.
Okay, but I want people to stop and think about, it's so funny when just this weekend I was at Wyatt Jackson's birthday party, and he came up to me and he asked me a question. He said, Shannon, what's a coach? And I said, oh, a coach is somebody or something that helps you to get to another level of success. Because if you do something by yourself, and this is replicated over and over and over again in our society, if you try to do something by yourself, there are some remarkable people who can do that. But very few of us really can do it without a coach. This is why Olympic athletes have coaches. And when Olympic athletes say, well, I'm just going to go it on my own, I've been doing this for a while, they don't medal that year. Having a coach is what helps all of us to get to goals that we want to succeed in. And I really think that this is a coach on the go for parents and for our kiddos on the spectrum, and it makes it so super duper simple that I was just going through here. I in 2 minutes I put in an account and I put in a profile for a child, and then I was just creating a workout and was already starting it. That's why you heard it counting down because it was that quick. And I could pick the exercises that so if I was a parent or a teacher, I could pick the exercises that I wanted the student or my child to do, and I could hand them the iPad and it would walk them through. You even got videos on here, David, of modeling, and we know how important video modeling is right now, that we're seeing that is really effective with our kids on the spectrum. This is just super duper smart, and it's putting it in people's hands. We all know that exercise is important. I don't think we know how important it is and what a great benefit it would be to our kids in terms of the behaviors. But if you think about it, an exhausted kid is a kid who doesn't have the time to get anxious, right? We know that lowers stress. I'm talking too much, David, and not letting you talk. But I think it's remarkable.
Well, myself and the team appreciate it. Like I said, we worked really hard. And one of those, when you mentioned the videos, that's been our biggest response from the universities and people using it, is they love those video models. And I knew that we knew from the evidence that video modeling but there's 133 videos paired with exercises, which most apps, you don't see that in the autism community. It's, hundreds of visuals, but only 20 videos. But the unique thing and most exciting thing about those videos, there's 3 individuals demonstrating, and all 3 of those individuals have autism. Those are clients and champions of ours that we've worked with for years, and we shot those videos in 2 days, and they're the ones modeling for their peers. So really excited about that.
I gotta
Browse
say,
exercises.
it talks to you, which is wonderful. So I'm playing with it right now. And I just clicked on the browse exercises. And if you're thinking this is just calisthenics, you need to guess again. Because I've gone into the browse exercises and it's got all these categories here, starting with yoga. We're big fans of yoga here at Autism Live, and we know how helpful that can be to our kids to help them to be centered. It helps with that core strength. It helps with anxiety. You've got sports skills, cardiovascular fitness, muscular fitness, abdominal strength, motor coordination, posture, body image, dynamic flexibility, and the fitness room. And it's almost like the flashcards in that there are these lovely blue squares that each one of them has a really fun cartoon drawing of what it is with the name of what it is. I'm looking at yoga right now, so I've got the butterfly and the airplane and the bird. I'm going to push
Sports
to
skills.
sports skills. And I love the voice. A lot of times I don't like the voiceovers, but I like her. And all of these amazing things, a bounce pass, a catch with glove, catch with hands, chest pass, stop soccer ball. I love that you've torn it down into these very small increments. We know that that's the way to get it done. I'm just going
Cardiovascular
through
fitness.
here. There's so many exercises here and so many of them that have a video with them to do that video modeling. So this is a huge chunk of work that you guys have done. It's very comprehensive, David. I love that schools are using this, but if somebody's school doesn't use it, I think it's important that we tell parents, you could do this at home.
Yeah,
It's-
absolutely. I
This-
mean, that was the goal when we redesigned it, is to make it, and it's not just for the schools or the parents, and in talking about the schools, remember these, and I was a paraeducator myself, these
with the
visual
fitness.
supports, especially in a PE setting, are not only important for our children with autism or our students with autism, but are vital to the support staff who are trying to help them achieve these goals, or the non-exercise professional. So again, we made it really simple and easy to use, and that's the response we're getting. But those visuals are just as important for the support staff as they are the child.
I agree. You know, so much of the time when my son comes home for the summer, he's doing really well, and so he doesn't qualify for summer support services from his school anymore. But the OT will send him home with a piece of paper with some exercises on it, and sometimes we get a baggie of tools. You know, I think it was summer before last, there was one of those scrunchy tubes that he would have to squeeze it and put it back together and then pull it apart. And he had to do it in like 20 different directions. He had to do it behind his head, he had to do it across his chest, and both directions. It was all these things. But I will be honest with you, we started out great the first week, and and I'm reading the instructions to him over, and he's not loving it, but we were doing it every day. Then the piece of paper, I don't know where it went, and so now we're doing it, but it feels like we forgot something. And by the end of the summer, we weren't doing it anymore. It wasn't reinforcing to him. It wasn't reinforcing to me. And we couldn't keep organized, and I didn't feel like I knew enough about what I was doing. If we had programmed it into here, and I just said to him, did you do your exercises? I could have handed him the iPad. It walks you through the exercises. You get to register the reps. Mm-hmm. It's very reinforcing the way that it does it, and you feel like you accomplished something.
Yeah, and that's what these kids, I mean, aside from all the benefits that I mentioned earlier, what we found with all of our kids over, now this has been 10 years I've been doing this, is that they have a newfound confidence because of exercise. It's just they haven't always had the supports in place, and we're very happy and excited that we can try to provide these supports and this technology, but we are just trying to continue to educate parents and schools and professionals that this should not just be in their PE class. This exercise can be used as a sensory break.
Yeah.
It could be used before or after they get on or off the bus to calm their bodies. You can do functional type of sensory breaks or exercise.
This is an area that I'm really all about right now, because I have an interesting viewpoint of the autism community, both our little ones and our teenagers and our adults, and I get to see how people are getting to progress. And I am starting to see, my son is 12, almost 12 and a half, And I'm noticing when I'm asking parents of the teenagers and of the young adults that are doing really well, and I'm saying, what are the components that got you through the teen years? What do you attribute your success to? I am hearing over and over, David, that we got them enough exercise going that they had body confidence and it helped them to get through some of the hormonal things. And oddly enough, it's the thing that helped them to have peers that, because let's face it, if they're the pudgy kid who can't climb the rope, then you get ostracized. You're the last one to get picked on the kickball team. But having a certain amount of physical strength and being able to, have command of your physical body helps with your self-esteem, helps with all the anxiety, and helps with peers.
And even one of our girls that we used to work with, now it's been 4 years, 5 years almost. I think I started her when she was 14, and she couldn't even walk around with mom or dad without getting tired or exhausted. Her dad had to carry her. She was like a young teenager, 13, 12 years old. Now she's going on vacations with the family because she can do it. I mean, what a big difference just a little bit of exercise can do, and not only help that individual, but now just imagine now the dad doesn't have to carry his daughter. I mean, it doesn't have to be what people think about exercise or the way it's portrayed in the media or in these gyms. It doesn't have to be this exhausting. They need to be sweating and exhausted. No, a little bit of exercise can go a long way with these kids.
Absolutely.
But then once we've done that, then we can slowly challenge them even more. And trust me, they're ready for a challenge.
And the thing I love about this is that it's highly customizable. You can go through and make a workout and put the exercises that you want in, or there's a quicker way, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I did this before we were on, where you just push workout and it's got stuff all ready for us. Am I correct?
It has some Coach Dave exercises that we've put in there and we're constantly updating. But in that one section where you went to workout,
Yes.
where you found the first then board,
Yes.
then it has the start finish board, which allows you to put up to 12 exercises. And again, the first then, the start finish, these are things that are being taught or visual support systems that are used in the classroom or in the OT or the PT sessions. We just use that same strategies and put it to exercise. We just had to provide the visuals and the videos.
And again, this was always available in flashcards, but now having it this way, it's so much easier. You don't. I think this is the wave of what our kids are interested in, first of all, and all the information is right there for you. This is so much easier. So again, you can get this at the App Store. And I'm still pushing buttons because I'm so excited. So we can get this for the iPad only at this moment in time, and it's got a really affordable price point. So talk to us about how much this is.
Yeah, it's $29.99. We went back and forth with this. I mean, if you see and you're going through it and you see there's a lot of technology there, a lot of stuff being done, and we could have definitely charged more. But my goal, just like yours, is to help these children and help these families. So we went back and forth, and again, we thought $30 is a very reasonable price to charge for families, but also for the schools. Adaptive PE and PE budgets are very slim to none. But I think for schools, this should or can come out of three budgets. It can come out of adaptive PE or PE. It can come out of special education, because once you go through that one teaching tool section, you'll see how that transfers right back to the classroom. Or it could come out of a technology budget where we know it's being, there's a lot of money in the schools for now. So again,
Absolutely.
we wanted to give no excuse to schools and try to help parents as much as we can so we can continue to add and build on this.
Absolutely, and I know here in the Los Angeles area, many elementary schools don't have PE teachers anymore. That the teacher for the single classroom teacher is the person who's responsible for meeting the PE requirement in the standards.
Okay.
What a gift
Yeah.
if you're looking for the perfect gift to give a teacher that is the PE teacher that's never taught PE before for all of her kids, because we should say that this is not just for students who are on the autism spectrum, correct, David?
Well, our target has been, but we have a lot of parents or people saying, "Look, I can use this with my, my 5-year-old or my 6-year-old. Or I could use this for myself." And yeah, I think in the how you demonstrated for the teachers in California, I would definitely project that on to the smart board or the projector, as long as you have the adapters, and then they could run the whole class through a start-finish routine or a number of routines and however time that they have.
An amazing, amazing gift. But I definitely think that it should be something that every family really looks at for, if you leave this and don't take care of the physical component, you're just gonna have to deal with it later on. And so this is a way to do it easy.
Yeah, and the thing that I get, and I probably talked about this last time, is a lot of families call me. The kids are 14, older, 15 years old, and they've either lost their OT or PT services or graduated from them, which is awesome. But now they say, my kid's not moving, they're gaining weight, and they know how exercise is important. These children still need to understand, even at the very young age, that there's a difference between therapy or OT and PT and exercise, and that can carry over into adulthood. So this is the perfect way to start to introduce them to that.
It's really remarkable. So again, it's called Exercise Buddy. You can get it for the iPad. It's very affordable and so worth it. David, we want to thank you so much for being with us and for all the great work that you're doing. You have to stay in touch with us.
We will.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Is there a website that they can go to get more information? Because Exercise Connection, they can go to that, right?
They can go there, or you just go to exercisebuddy.com and everything's right there.
Exercisebuddy.com. Okay. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Really remarkable. I'm having such fun. It made me get up out of my chair, and almost nothing makes me get up out of my chair. Let's just be honest here. So I'm enjoying playing with this. Can't wait for my son to check it out. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Lisa Ackerman from TACA is going to walk us through the new numbers for the CDC. Stick with us.
So we're going to do down dog next. So with down dog, there are several different ways that you can do it, and I want to show you first and then help you with yours so that we can work on what feels good for you, okay? All right, because there's no right way to do it. It's more about what your body likes, all right? So for me, what I'm going to do is start off with my hands at the top of my mat, my headlights. My fingers are aiming towards the top of my mat, and then I'm going to tuck my toes, and then my head is also going to drop, and I'm going to look between my toes. Okay. And my body should be, or hopefully, like an A shape.
Or V.
Or V, yes.
Upside down V.
Yep. And so if your quads are tight or your hamstrings are tight, you might need to bend your knees a little bit.
Then it's you.
Or if your shoulders are a little strained or a little tight, remember to push in through your feet, but also sometimes what feels really good is going down on your forearms, like this. You can actually start out this way instead, it's a little easier. So your forearms rest on the floor, you still tuck your toes, and then you're still looking between your toes, but rather than being on your hands then, your weight's along your hands and your forearms. Okay? All right. So, now it's your turn. Okay. So, yep. You're going to do on your hands? Okay, yep. So your fingers are facing the front of the mat. Or are you doing forearms? Forearms? Okay, there we go. Wow, you're very bendy. Very nice. And your gaze is right here between your toes. Excellent. Very nice, Jem. Wow. Awesome. Feet are a nice distance apart. How does that feel?
Okay.
Awesome. You want to come down? Excellent. Good.
There's been another new study about optimal outcomes, and I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on recovery? Do you think it's possible? Do you believe in recovery from autism?
On recovery, you learn how to adapt. I mean, I've had a lot of experimental brain scans done, and they have found things that are definitely abnormal. I have an enlarged left ventricle that's definitely abnormal. That's not going to go away. That scan was done less than 5 years ago. But you work with someone and they adapt. You're not going to make me an algebra specialist. That's just not going to happen. But things like getting better at public speaking, that is something that I gradually learned. What I'm seeing today, especially with some of the kids on the mild end of the spectrum, I'm seeing teenagers that are much milder than me that haven't learned things like how to go up to the counter at McDonald's and order food all by themselves, how to go on the bus, how to shop, how to go in the store and shop, how to do a checkbook, basic things like that. Because what drives me crazy is when I go back to the cattle world and I see a guy in the maintenance shop that's running the whole maintenance shop at a big plant, and he's as Asperger's as he can be, and he's running the whole maintenance shop. And then I see Junior that's addicted to video games, and you can't get his duff off his chair and get him doing things. Now, when I was in high school, I did a lot of thinking about this. I got kicked out of a large girls' school for throwing a book, and I went to a special boarding school up on a farm, and I was allowed to work with the farm animals. And they let me goof off and not study. But I got to thinking, there's one thing they did not let me do. I goofed off and I didn't study, but I had to physically go to class. When I didn't want to go to the Friday night movie, they made me the projectionist. One thing they were not going to let me do is sit in my room, become a recluse in my room. They were not going to allow that.
I want to know why you threw the book. Why did you throw it?
Oh, I threw a book at a girl because she called me a retard.
Oh, good reason.
Oh, no,
to throw
she
it
teased me. And I had some problems getting in fights when kids teased me. But it was always brought about by someone picking on me. And the principal had me kicked out of school, out of a large girls' school for doing that.
And what'd your mom say?
Well, she was not very happy about the whole thing, because when the principal called, I answered the phone and he said I was incorrigible and I was kicked out of school. Mother was really angry that he just said that right directly to me, which was definitely not very appropriate.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so thrilled and so lucky because we have joining us right now via Skype Lisa Ackerman. She is a dear friend, and she is the founder, I consider her a dear friend, and a friend of the show as well, but she's the founder of TACA, an amazing organization. She is the author, most often, although she has guest bloggers, of the blog Real Help Now, which is an amazing autism resource. And if you go to the TACAnow.org website, it is the single best, I think, resource for autism information that there is on the web. So Lisa is here to talk with us about the new numbers that came out from the CDC, because Lisa, there's a great deal of confusion about these numbers. So inform us so that we can be up to speed.
Well, again, I like to say I'm a mom with stretch marks. Those are my credentials. I'm not someone who reviews science professionally, but I have been obsessed with these autism numbers for quite some time, the last 18 years. So for me, 16 years, because my son was diagnosed 16 years ago. I think it's important for parents to understand where they come from and to do their own research and to come to their own conclusions. You know, my goal was to just really briefly share. I've got notes here because this is not easy stuff, Shannon.
No, this is thick stuff. You have to wade through in hip boots. Yeah.
So the survey that came out on Friday, November 13th, is a parent survey, and the last time it was done was 2011. And that number, when parents were asked if they had a child with intellectual disabilities or development delays or autism spectrum disorders, parent survey, 1 in 91 said they had a child with autism. And this new survey, with the data done and completed in 2014, 1 in 45 parents reported back they had a child with autism. So it's different than and again, this is done, and I just want to make sure I read this correctly because I don't want to mess anyone up. So it's a National Health Interview Survey. And NHIS is conducted by the CDC. So that's the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And it is an important statistic to get parent information, but it was interesting, in USA Today quoted This new survey found a big jump in the number of children with autism, although researchers caution that the increase is likely due to the way the questions were asked. What do you think of that, Shannon?
Well, this is what made the top of my head fly off and fly around the room, because that was the headline everywhere, that it,
Yes.
they asked the questions in a different way. But when you dug a little deeper and read to the bottom of the article, and it said, here's the question that we asked: has a health professional ever diagnosed your child with ASD, autism, PDD, NOS, or Asperger's syndrome? That's the big question that when I read that they attributed this difference to, and I'm thinking, but wait a second, that's an incredibly valid question.
Yeah.
Why are we saying that these numbers may not be accurate because of that question? I don't get it.
I mean, most parents understand when they've received a diagnosis for their child, they know what that diagnosis is. Very rarely do they confuse the diagnosis. Now, I have found sometimes parents are not readily available to share that information, and usually they don't want to talk about it. But I mean, that's a really basic question. Does your kid have autism? Yes or no? And Kelby has been nice enough to show the link. So you guys, there's some really great graphs and information, so you can see the order in which the questions were asked, and you can come to your own terms, conclusions yourself. Do you feel these parents over embellished or under embellished, or just answered the question? That's the question of the day, I guess, with this survey.
Yeah.
And again, the last time this was done was 2011, and it's interesting. The Autism and Developmental Disability Monitoring Network, and it's short for ADDM, is the survey that was done in 2010, which came up with the 1 in 68 number. Now, I understand, and again, I can't predict the future, but there's possible that a new number will be done in March 2016. And it's basically on 8-year-olds, and the areas that they included, because this is important, is Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Georgia, Maryland, Missouri, New Jersey, North Carolina, Utah, and Wisconsin. And in that 2010 survey, which was done by Health and Special Education Records, so it's different. They're actually looking at printed records, and they calculated the number that we use today with the CDC. So what I find really interesting, the parent survey back in 2011 was not adopted by the CDC. They wait for the ADDM information, which should be, like I said, sometime in 2016. We think March, but again, we can't predict the future. It could be delayed by some way, shape, or form.
But each time that number has come out, the number has, I think, been stunning and taken people's breath away. And each time it comes out, there are a bunch of people who go, but that must not be accurate. And my question is, at what point, and there's always some excuse. There's always some excuse, well, it's this, we changed the diagnostic criteria. I know, none of us has the answer to this, but at what point are people going to go, we can't ignore this?
I keep thinking, and I am idealistic, that at some point the number will just make everyone scared and concerned. Not that we, are scared of children or issues that children may have, but at some point, something that was once very rare, 1 to 2 in every 10,000 in the 70s, has had a massive increase. And we can't say everybody was stupid until recently in the professional department.
Right.
There's definitely an increase in autism. I think, I always challenge people to go talk to 5 schools in the town that they currently live in, and just look and talk to the lifer that works in the office.
Yeah.
And ask them, is there more kids with autism there? I think their answer would be absolutely yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it would take, and that's one thing that we hope within our agency Autism Coordinating Committee. They're meeting for the first time since September 2014. They're meeting today. I think for once and for all, they did a wonderful in 2013, an actual census in Minneapolis. And the census in Minneapolis, and I tried to kind of tie those two together. A census is a physical, someone knocks on your door and asks you a few questions, just like we have every year, 10 years in the United States. And they came up with a very high number, again, matching the parent survey, very close to the parent survey. And that was done in 2013. So that's what I try to relate in the blog when this came out, is that, 2013 and 2014 numbers are very similar. And what may put this to rest would be an actual census. And that's, one can dream. That's what I would like, because then we could look at severity and the needs of each individual and stop guessing.
Yeah. And I know that you are somebody who's really diligent, and you wrote a letter that we all have the opportunity to write letters to the IACC. And so is that what you wrote? Did you write to them and say, would you please do a census?
Yeah, bullet number 1 is to declare autism an epidemic, and bullet number 2 would be, please do a census and put it to bed what that number is, because these surveys, everyone could take them apart, and rightly so. They're surveys. When you look at it, we're looking at 8-year-olds. So, and that was in 2010 for the 1 in 68 number. And that's just really, that's old information. And, if your kid was not 8 or older at that point in time, quote unquote, your kid was not included in that survey. So for everyone who had, a kid under the age of 8 in 2010, you're not in the number. They're not represented. And I would love to find a way if we could do a census, and then we can ask the question of severity and need. Then we can actually drive forward positive solutions, because right now everyone's just making excuses.
Exactly.
And that's what's tiring.
It is tiring. They're making excuses, or they're just being absentee on it, which is exhausting to me. I know that that you and I both have been watching the debates closely and looking to see when and how, if autism is brought up. You and I were both tweeting on Saturday night, trying to get, since it was sponsored by Twitter, my hope was that maybe we could get an autism question in there. Neither one of us were successful in making that happen. I think next time we need to join forces and pull a bunch of people in and see if we can't tip the balance on that. What do you think it would take for us to get the candidates to speak intelligently about where they stand on autism?
I want to be positive that people really care about kids and they really care about the future. And I think the cynical side of me, which is, now seemingly coming more to the forefront after 16 years in this journey, until someone power is affected, I don't know what kind of change can be activated. Because right now, I don't know who's talking to leaders. But certainly it's not parents. If parents were talking to leaders, maybe perhaps they would start listening.
Yeah.
The Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee has spent almost $3 billion since 2006. And I've yet to find one family that's been positively affected by one of their decisions. So I just really think we've got to take it to the next level. And I think my husband said it really well recently at an event, was we've got to turn up the volume.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you and want to be in cahoots with you to do that. Okay. So put me to work.
Wow.
Put me to work.
Fun. I'm just kidding. Nothing's fun when you talk about something like autism, and I would cahoots with you anytime I could.
There we go.
And I wish I had the magic sauce to get people to sprinkle around somewhere so people would actually be concerned. And it's interesting, Shannon, I'm sure when you mention what you do and you're at the grocery store, at the coffee shop, or picking up whatever, wherever, and you talk autism, you get a lot of questions, and there's a lot of concerned families. And,
I don't even have to bring it up. It is amazing. I know that you experience life this way too. I can be standing in line at the bank, and before I'm to the teller, somehow I'm having a conversation with somebody about autism, and I'm not the one who started it. Yeah. But once I say what I do, yeah, you're right. Everybody's like, well, here are my 12 questions.
Right. I mean, so a lot of people are asking questions, but there's just so much information that's out there, and they're not sure who to listen to. But when you have those conversations, they do listen to parents. And they're trying to be understanding and helpful, and they're trying to understand what the issues are. And, it's not just, wonderful, great outcomes that, are experienced with autism. Unfortunately, that's a percentage. We don't know how many people are living, and we should just accept and love and embrace their differences, which I agree. But there's a lot, and the lion's share, I would guess, and again, I would guess because we have no data on this, is it's much larger, that there's many people that need much more help and support than the ones that are going to live independently and become taxpayers. I mean, I'd like to change that.
Yes.
I'd like to see kids do and live their possible dreams and do all sorts of wonderful things. And I know firsthand because my son's applying for college right now.
Nice.
And he did his SATs and has almost a 4.0 GPA right now.
Wow.
I mean, he's a walking miracle, and I look at what he's been through and what his prognosis was not good. And I want what can be possible for every child to live what they want to do and be. But the point being is at some level of time, and I don't know when that is, what the horizon is, but I'd like it to be sooner than later. We have to make autism a priority.
Absolutely. Amen, sister. Well, we thank you for helping us to understand where these numbers came from and why they're important and what the next questions are, because that's really the bigger thing, what the next questions are. So thank you for enlightening all of us. We're thrilled to have an opportunity to speak to you. We should say that on Thursday, we are not going to be doing a live show on Thursday because we're spending the day with Miss Lisa Ackerman, and we have not had the opportunity to do some What's Left cooking segments with her. And on Thursday, we are down to business doing some serious cooking, which I'm thrilled that we're going to do that. And we want to thank Well Amy for being an amazing sponsor that's making that possible. And we're going to be talking more about Well Amy and more about What's Left cooking. But we're thrilled that we're going to get that time with you. I can't wait to be in your kitchen for a day.
Well, it'll be fun, and I'm looking forward to it. But for parents on this statistic and this number, it's time to share your voice. And I would encourage you to voice your opinion with the IACC. If you just do IACC autism in Google, it will come up. And write a letter of concern to share what your concerns are and what's important to your family about this statistic and your needs and what you think they should be doing. They in essence work for you. And I would hope that you voice your opinion and share your thoughts. I've written what my thoughts are. By no means does anyone have to share those exactly, but I would encourage you to put your opinion forward so you can help drive positive change for your child.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Lisa, because I get things from them all the time, but I missed the communique about this is when the letters can be written.
Right.
But I know that, I don't know whether it was the last meeting or the one before that, because they're so few and far between, let's be honest about that. That after the meeting, they published the minutes from the meeting and all of the letters that were sent in. And I was stunned that there was such a small amount of them that I was able to read through all of the letters that got sent in over my lunch break. And I will be honest that several of them had nothing to do with autism. It was just people saying their point of view about something that, honestly, I didn't see how it related to autism. That was so horrifying to me, but I really believed that this time I was looking out for when the letters were, and I missed it. So how is it that you know about when the letters are able to, because it's you have to get it in beforehand.
Yeah.
How do you find out about that?
It's typically, and again, it could change, so please don't be upset with me. It's about a week before the physical meeting that takes place. In 2014, they had 4 meetings. This year, this is the first meeting in 2015. So typically, and again, only going off history, not the current year.
Right.
4 meetings a year would happen. They would schedule it. They give you about a 30-day notice, and then you have roughly a 7-day notice to get your letter in and voice your opinion. And once I get those notices, Shannon, I'll just send them to you, and maybe you can share them with the viewers.
Absolutely.
So they can put their
There's
opinion.
no way that we got a 30-day notice this time. There's no way.
I'm going off 2014.
No, but they should give us a 30-day notice to write the
Yeah.
letter, and we should be able to write the letters, up to when they meet. But they should meet more often. They should meet more often than 4 times a year, and they should meet more often than, here we are mid-November, and it's their first meeting of the year.
It's their first meeting. So
Okay.
yeah, I think just in everything we discussed with regards to the autism prevalences, the surveys, and the IACC meeting for the first time in 2015, that should give every parent enough information to voice
Yes.
their thoughts.
Get
And
on
and
your
and
pen.
please,
Yeah.
and
All right.
I'm sorry to preach. I'm not here to preach, but
No. We
definitely
all,
share it.
sometimes we need to know what's happening so that we can all start to walk in a direction. And it's really good, and you are a leader, and it's good to have somebody to follow. You
Well,
are a leader.
you're sweet. I'm again just a mom
Just
trying
saying
to
the
drive
truth.
change, and hoping that kids get the best opportunity to be the best they can be, and that's all I want. I mean, I have no other agenda other than healthy, happy,
Absolutely.
adults that do wonderful things. That's what I want.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Lisa. We will see you on Thursday, and thank you for
Yep.
all this good information.
And thank you guys for having me on. Sorry, it's been a while. It's been a little busy, but
Hey, I
appreciate
know you're out there doing things, making a difference for families, but we're always here whenever you are available. We've got time for you, always.
Wonderful.
All
Well,
right.
thank you for having us. And
Hugs to
the
everybody there.
links. Sorry.
I said hugs to everybody there.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Hugs
That's
back
all
to you too. Hi, Kelby, and definitely I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple days.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Amazing woman, and yes, a mom who wants the best for everybody, but she's also a tremendous asset for our community and a great leader. We're going now to the A word. When we come back, it's time for Dr. Linda Copeland, as I say, the unicorn, both a developmental pediatrician and a board-certified behavior analyst, answering your questions, so stick with us. Bye.
Sand. Does that feel funny in your hands? Do you want to go swing? Jack Riley. Jack. Good looking. Thank you.
I accept that he has sensory issues. I completely accept that he has speech delays. All of the symptoms and the things that lead up to the word autism, I have no problem accepting that. And I have no problem addressing that and being aggressive about it and making those things happen. It's the word itself that I have a hard time with, mostly because of my perception. And I imagine the perception of a lot of people that autism is Rain Man.
I don't have my maple syrup either. I'm going to be without my maple syrup and my toothpicks.
It's all these images that you see, even when they put a child on TV, it's a child who's so severe and doesn't hug his parents, and because our son does that, it's just hard for me to make that leap. And then logically, I get it; it's a big spectrum, and it's just a personal thing. But it's hard for me to say the word because you don't want to admit anything.
It makes it real to say the word.
We knew it even before, to a certain extent. He would line up cars, and
I'd walk on the knuckles of his toes a lot.
I remember even having conversations saying, like, I'm sure he walks on the knuckles of his toes. I'm sure he lines up his toys.
Yeah, the more times you say, oh, sure, then you find eventually you've got to
He spins.
draw a circle around those and say, okay, what does that add up to?
So we always noticed that.
He didn't point.
He never pointed, although we didn't realize that until we went through this process. If our pediatrician had asked us, 8, 9 months ago, does your son point? We would have known a lot right then. We decided last fall to get Jack Riley tested for speech delay. We noticed that he wasn't saying a lot. He didn't say mommy, he didn't say daddy. He was a little different when we would take him out in public. So we contacted the regional center to get him evaluated for speech delay, in my mind. And that was the worst I thought it would be. So when they told us autism, I think that word was far worse than we ever expected.
Yeah, I remember I kicked the garbage can when we were outside. My foot hurt. I remember that. And that wasn't a very good day.
How were they with letting you know that was the diagnosis?
I guess in my recollection, and this is me projecting quite a bit, but they pitied us.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable. And they're talking sort of like
was 12 years old or something like that. Who knows how to deal with that kind of stuff? I mean, even if you're a professional and that's what you do all the time, I don't know. You don't know the people you're telling very well.
There was a lot of the head shaking, and he's still the same beautiful child that you came here with, but yet they're sitting there like they've just given us a death sentence.
Yeah, it's almost like they just told us he had cancer or something.
So I don't know if I'm reading that in, or I don't think that I like them that much. I still don't think I do. And we didn't love that process either. They brought him in there and gave him 45 new toys and said he's more interested in the toys than he is in us.
We
Strange
thought
people that he never met.
We thought what kid wouldn't be, but.
But then in retrospect, in the hour and a half, 2 hours that he was there, he never once showed us one of the toys. He didn't come to us to engage us in any of it. And actually they did us a favor because we would have fought it. I mean, just in our heads, we would have fought the autism diagnosis. We wouldn't have. Had they told us that he's fine, we would have left and got him speech therapy, and that would have been it.
Probably it, yeah.
We're pretty numb about all of this. I mean, we found out November 2nd. It's 4 months. It's also kind of a mourning period, so I think we went very numb for a while.
Yeah.
But we're coming out of that now too, where we're starting to, click that there are things that we can do. I mean, I think for the unfortunate part for a while was that we were both thinking, come and help us, everybody, please.
Mm-hmm.
We have this thing that we don't know how to deal with it, and time's a ticket, come and help us, tell us, and now we're just kind of do it ourselves, and we're the ones who know him best, and we can take all this information that people tell us, and then we can adapt it to what we know will work for him, and he's already responding. It's slow, but
I personally forgot for a while to enjoy him. I just took care of him all day, and I wasn't having fun. Now I'm back to just how cute he is and how incredible that little thing he just did is, and that smile and the joy he gets out of one simple little thing. And but for a while there, I forgot to do that. I just was getting through the day. Maybe he didn't want to notice. Maybe I didn't want to notice things because a lot of them point to the A word, autism again. There's no one to talk to about it, because even when you bring up the idea that's possible, your family members, no, he's fine. They want to help you say no and deny it. He seems fine. He's just, my son didn't talk till he was 3 1/2.
yeah, a lot of people, that was part of why we didn't even have him evaluated until we did, because a lot of people would tell us that.
And everyone tells me their son didn't speak till he was 3 1/2 and wasn't potty trained till he was 4, and so, my kid's normal. Well, it's easy to deny it, but we're not denying it anymore.
I ordered a pair of earrings, and they were puzzle pieces, because my son liked puzzles, and I thought, this is in honor of my son, I'll wear these earrings. They had the right colors, and I thought, this is great. And we were probably two days away from going to this diagnosis, and I'd done enough research to know what they might say. And it occurred to me that puzzle pieces were symbolic of autism. And I was like, I'm gonna have to send them back. Wow, this is terrible. I can't believe I've ordered autism earrings.
Yeah.
And didn't wear them for months. They sat there, I looked at them every day, and I thought, I'm gonna put these earrings in today and accept it and move forward. And couldn't do it. That I can't wear them to OT because they'll think I'm just wearing autism earrings to, make a statement. And I finally started wearing them probably, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So I guess that means I'm getting used to the idea.
I see it in adults now. I'm very conscious of it. Maybe it helps to just think everybody has it a little bit. We were getting Jack a haircut a few weeks ago. We still say the A word instead of autism. I'll say A word, you A word. And
That was for real, though.
That was real. This 15-year-old kid walks in, and Toy Story 3 is on, and there's little kids getting their hair cut, sitting on chairs and animals and whatever. And he starts talking out loud to whoever would listen, saying how much money Toy Story 3 had made, and it's the largest grossing in history, and blah blah blah, and blah blah blah, and blah blah blah. And then he goes, "Okay, I'll see you guys later." And he walked out, and I go, "A word?" And she goes, "Oh yeah." Oh, yeah. So at least we got a little sense of humor about it now.
Are you watching Daddy dance?
Welcome back to Autism Live. I just love seeing the tail end there of the A word. Love, love, love that family. Don't forget, you can watch that entire series now. We have completed shooting and completed debuting the videos for that series. We hope to continue it with another child, but you can check out that entire series on their very own YouTube page. The A Word. Amazing, amazing what that family did. Okay, we're so excited because right now via Skype, it is that time, the third Tuesday of every month, we have Dr. Linda Copeland with us, and we call her the unicorn, and I'm thrilled that you guys are now starting to call her the unicorn. And the reason why we call her the unicorn is because she is both a developmental pediatrician and a board certified behavior analyst. We are not aware of anyone else that is exactly those two things on the planet, and who would have thought that it could be, but she is. And she joins us once a month to answer your questions. So Dr. Copeland, welcome back to Autism Live.
Yes, great to be back.
Thrilled to be here with you. We're going to start with a question that, because we believe we've gotten many questions about this, and we believe that it's somebody who's been really diligent. Dear Shannon and Dr. Copeland, my son is having recurring mouth ulcers. What can be the cause of this? It looks like small white ulcers. Also, quite often his breath smells like nail polish remover. Can this be related? And thank you. And then another time they had written in, they said, Dear Shannon, this is such a great idea to have a pediatrician on board. I'm always looking forward to Dr. Copeland being on the show. I have one question. My son very often gets little mouth ulcers. Sometimes it coincides with a cold or a virus, sometimes just ulcers. I would really appreciate it if Dr. Copeland could explain what could be the cause of recurring ulcers and what could be done to treat it. Thank you and love your show. And we love you as well. So Dr. Copeland, we think that's from the same parent, but it might not be. Talk to us about small white mouth ulcers.
Well, mouth ulcers and recurring mouth ulcers are fairly common, and they might be white. They might have a red base, and at different times they could be white to red. And they're most commonly what we call canker sores or aphthous ulcers. So about 20% or more of the population gets them, and I'm in the 20% or more, so I get them periodically. And they are more common if the child gets sick with another illness, like a virus, head cold, or something like that, stress. And also trauma in the mouth can trigger them. So be careful with the child's toothbrush. You don't want a super hard bristle brush, and you don't want a damaged toothbrush where the bristles are all awry, because that can damage the mucosa of the mouth and bring out those ulcers. In terms of treatment, they will go away on their own. They generally last about 7 to 10 days. Anytime if a person gets a mouth sore that lasts more than 14 days, check with your doctor, because it might not be a typical canker sore. But to make them go away quicker, there's actually a sweet cure, and that is honey. So there's actually been a scientific study done showing that honey is a better, safer than medications. And you put a bit of honey on the sore 4 times a day for about 5 days. And what the results in this one study showed, there were 3 different comparison groups with about 60 patients in each group. And it showed that the honey group, the sores went away quicker and they were less painful. So that's one proposed treatment. And it might also be worth talking to a nutritionist, because sometimes if they really get them a lot, it could suggest the child may need more zinc, folinic acid, or vitamin B12 in their diet.
Okay. And what about the breath smelling like the nail polish remover?
I'm not sure what that is, and I'm not sure if it's related to the canker sores or not. But if they have breath with that kind of aroma combined with significant weight loss, very extreme excessive thirst, and extreme urination, you worry about diabetes.
Okay.
But if the child's otherwise healthy and active and vigorous, not sure what's doing that.
Okay, very, very interesting. The smell of breath is a very interesting thing to me. I know when my child was little, we had yeast issues with him. And, you know, we could pay a whole lot of money to have the test done, and we did, but I could smell it on him. He smelled like, a lot of times his breath smelled like brandy. And I remember when we began a yeast treatment, a diflucan treatment, that went away. It was a very interesting thing. So the breath is a very fascinating thing.
It is interesting. And I've had other behavior analysts at CARD tell me that they've noticed the same thing with their clients in ABA treatment, that they could tell by the scent or aroma of the child that sometimes the child smelled yeasty or doughy.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I was born with a very poor sense of smell, so I can't rely on that as much.
Yeah, well, it's a fascinating thing. Now, I have to get to this one next because somebody wrote in and said, for the unicorn, and I particularly love that. So for the unicorn, are there differences between fish oil and cod liver oil? Is taking fish oil enough? And thank you.
So that's a good question. And yes, there are differences. So cod liver oil is specifically from the cod fish, only that one species, and it's specifically from the liver of the fish. So it's meant to be high in vitamin A, as well as healthy omega-3 fatty acids like DHA and EPA. Whereas fish oil can be from any of a variety of species of fish, including salmon, but also other species. I don't know the names of all of them. And it's from the body of the fish. So fish oil doesn't typically have vitamin A and vitamin D like cod liver oil has, but it is a good source of EPA and DHA, which are healthy omega-3 fatty acids. So cod liver oil typically has more DHA than EPA, and DHA is especially needed in infants for brain development. And EPA is more needed in older kids, and fish oil is higher in EPA. So those are some of the differences. So your goal as to whether you choose cod liver oil or fish oil depends on what situation is going on with your child and what you're trying to address. So that might be worth talking with a nutritionist and the child's doctor about. You know, is there some evidence that the child's deficient in vitamin A? Then cod liver oil is a good source of natural vitamin A. But do be careful. Many cod liver oil products, 1 teaspoon will have enough vitamin A for the full recommended daily allowance. And there may be multiple other products the child's getting all that may have vitamin A. And vitamin A in toxicity is quite toxic. It can become toxic on the brain and liver. So if you're going to do it, you do want to watch the vitamin A levels, but it is a good natural source of it. Cod liver oil has a strong taste, and some children just won't tolerate it, whereas fish oil does not have as strong a taste. So those are some of the differences.
And I just want to say that if you're doing the fish oils, whether it's cod liver oil or fish oil, make sure that you get good quality. This is not the kind of thing that you just buy the generic, because sometimes we say you got to get good quality oils.
Yeah, you want to probably get a U.S. product, and you want one that's been distilled to remove toxins and mercury, because unfortunately there's mercury pollution in the ocean. So hopefully, the body of the fish usually does not contain as much mercury, and it can be removed by distillation. So yeah, get a good natural product.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back with more questions for Dr. Copeland. Stick with us right back after these messages.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org support-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing, and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest right now, Dr. Linda Copeland, is joining us via Skype. She is a developmental pediatrician and a board-certified behavior analyst. I know. It's like, what? She's both of those? That's why we call her the unicorn here. And we love that you guys started calling her the unicorn too. Now, our next question, this was a question that started in a conversation with Dr. Grant Boucher a couple of weeks ago that a parent had written in and said, I'm having difficulties with my son's school, that I'm telling them that he has food sensitivities and they keep having infractions at school and it's been very difficult. We had answered the question, Dr. Grant Boucher and I specifically had said, tell them it's an allergy, people don't understand food sensitivity. And she had written back, and I'd love to have you weigh in on it, Dr. Copeland, because it involves a doctor's note. She writes, in regards to the food sensitivity and advising the school that it's an allergy, my son has an obvious reaction to milk. So I told the school that he's allergic to milk and he needs to have soy milk, and they have asked for a doctor's note. They will only provide soy milk to him if I have a doctor's note. So just wanted to let you know my experience and wonder if other parents have had this happen. I really do not want to put my son through an allergy test. He may not be allergic, but he definitely has an allergic reaction that causes hives on his skin and congestion. So this brings up a lot of things for us, Dr. Copeland, and I had mentioned to you during the break, more and more people are asking for doctor's notes for all kinds of things. We heard that Six Flags earlier this week has said that if you want to get their guest assistance pass to help because of a disability, you're going to have a doctor's note. So when it comes to allergies, and if families are having sensitivity issues, what do you think is the best path for them?
Well, I've seen this more and more, so it's unfortunate that these places are insisting on a doctor's note, but I think doctors should be willing to do that. That's part of caring for the child and the whole family in a holistic way. So I think that's the least we could do. And I think you can use the word allergy kind of in quotes, somewhat synonymous with sensitivity. For the school's point of view, we wouldn't want to use it, say, in a medical record per se, but from the school's point of view, I think they understand it more. So if I were that child's doctor, I'd be willing to write that note based on the symptoms that the mother's reporting. I don't think you'd have to subject the child to a specific test or blood test or whatnot to, quote, prove it's an allergy. I would listen to the mother and be happy to write the note. I mean, doctors have computers. It can be a brief 2-3 sentences and print it out and done. So, and same with the passes for resort areas. doctors can have a little template, and they should know the child and the family and realize that this is so helpful for the families. There's so many barriers that are put in the way of children with disabilities. Anything we can do to help is the least we can do.
Well, I'm glad that you're sharing this with us, because I have always felt like, oh, I don't want to burden the doctor with having to write the note, and it's always become a thing. And I think in some cases, as you pointed out, an allergy test at this point would be a blood test, but sometimes that's traumatic for our kids, especially when you already have seen that the child is having hives. I remember being little, and we had to do scratch tests on the back for things. And
Right.
I remember being a little bit older, and what I was told to do was an elimination diet to find out what I was allergic to.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's common sense. You know?
yes. Okay, so go and talk to the doctor, and the right pediatrician would be somebody who would work on that with you. And if that's not who you have, find a new pediatrician, I think. I want to move on to this next question. I know that you're a pediatrician, but this came in from an adult, and since you're a doctor, I know you can handle this. They wrote in and said, I'm a 36-year-old female with high-functioning autism. I struggle with getting to sleep at night and usually end up with accumulating only 4 hours or so on average. I have tried many over-the-counter supplements for sleep like melatonin, valerian root, even Benadryl. I was recently given a prescription for tazodone for its side effect of drowsiness. I did not like how this made me feel. I would like to inquire if there are any suggestions for something that is not addictive that could help. For some reason, I feel as though my symptoms of autism are more noticeable at work or at home while I struggle with sleep issues, which have become more of a problem in the last year. I'm not sure if lack of sleep is aggravating my autism or if my autism is getting worse. Could this be a possibility? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. I truly enjoy your show and have learned a lot. And they said, thank you. What do you think, Dr. Copeland?
Well, I don't think the autism is getting worse. I don't think we have any good studies to suggest in most cases that happens. But it does sound like she has a significant sleep disorder. And sleep disorders are fairly common even in the general population, certainly known to occur in individuals with autism spectrum disorder.
And wouldn't it be safe to say, Dr. Copeland, that all of us, if we don't get enough sleep, our ability to cope, it changes, and not for the better.
Absolutely.
No matter what our issues are.
Yeah, so I don't think her autism is getting worse. I think she has a sleep disorder plus autism. And as you were pointing out, Shannon, we need sleep for our brain to function properly and for good mental health. So given that she's tried what she's tried, and I don't know if she's done that in conjunction with a doctor, but I would see her doctor about this. And if her doctor is a generalist and not comfortable with sleep disorders and evaluating them and treating them, because there's a variety of different sleep disorders, especially in adults, then there are actually sleep medicine specialists, and her doctor could send her to a sleep medicine specialist. So it's a very complicated area. She may need further testing, like a sleep apnea study or other sleep studies. But some simple things that she may already have tried but are worth noting is good sleep hygiene, good sleep habits. You don't want to be doing a lot of viewing of electronic screens like a computer screen or an iPad or your cell phone right before you go to bed. You want at least about an hour of separation between a lot of screen viewing and trying to fall asleep, because the direct lighting from the screen across your eyes interferes with your brain's own natural production of melatonin. So I would watch that in terms of sleep hygiene. Watch the amount of caffeine if she's getting that in her diet, because that'll keep some people awake. And also not keep her cell phone by her bed, because that can be disruptive. Another thing, if she hasn't tried it yet, is building up what's called a healthy sleep dependency, and that is associating sleep with a variable that's going to be there all night long, and that would be a continuous white noise sound machine. Has been shown to be very helpful as a healthy sleep dependency. It can help you fall asleep again if you wake up in the middle of the night.
I'm somebody who has had some bouts of insomnia in my life, and a few years ago, and I think I'd gotten to a point, I'll be honest, I think I'd gotten to a point where I was so tired from lack of sleep that I could have fallen asleep anywhere. But it was suggested to me by another woman who was in her early 40s that she suggested I take a little bit of magnesium and vitamin D, and I'm telling you, if I take that an hour later, it doesn't matter. And a very small amount. It's not a huge amount, and I don't know which one it is, or whether it's the combination, or is it just in my head, Dr. Copeland, but I sleep now.
Well, that's awesome. And many children with autism need more vitamin D and magnesium. And as long as you supplement it in a natural amounts, that may be worth a try as well.
And these are over the counter. I'm not buying special, it's just over the counter.
Nutritional supplements. Yeah. And I could see where using them might actually help. If you also take occasional melatonin, might help the melatonin work better.
There you go. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question. Somebody wrote in about their 7-year-old who is nonverbal but does show signs of echolalia. He's an extremely busy boy with lots of sensory issues, which may get better depending on the day of the mood. My question is, we have tried all the medication to try to slow him down, but unfortunately it has the opposite effect on him. He becomes extremely busy and tends to melt down way more than normal, and he perspires so much on the meds. So please, do you have any advice or any known meds that will help this young man? What we have seen is that he will show signs of improvement when on a course of antibiotics. Now, I've read about pandas, and that they wrote, because I'm changing because they put the name in. He's also shown signs of pandas, but please note that I have not had him diagnosed with pandas. So what do you think, Dr. Copeland?
Okay, a lot of complex things here. First of all, pandas is a fairly rare neuropsychiatric disorder with an abrupt new onset of intense obsessive compulsive anxiety behaviors. So not hyperactivity or meltdowns per se, and it should be new and abrupt, associated specifically with culture-proven strep infection, strep being a bacteria. So if this child has not had any proven strep infection, and given that pandas is actually fairly rare, I think it's worth a discussion with a child's doctor, but it may very well not be pandas. There's something called PANS, which is a broader term that includes pandas, which is pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome. So there are some other viruses and other infectious agents, other bacteria that can be associated with this very severe, abrupt onset of obsessive compulsive disorder, tics, and so forth, but not hyperactivity or meltdowns per se. So it may not be pandas. It's worth a discussion, but it may not be. Since I don't know what medications have been tried, though the child's been tried on a lot, I can't really comment too much on the hyperactivity symptoms, the fact that he's very busy and has the sensory issues. But I could say, rather than mentioning a medication, that applied behavior analysis, or ABA, is evidence-based to help calm a child, to help decrease meltdowns, and to help increase their attention span. And combined with occupational therapy, working on the sensory diet, maybe modest benefits from that, and it's hard work, but I think that's worth a try. And then the other thing that struck me in what the parent reported was the child has very limited communication. So anything that helps increase their ability to communicate their wants and needs. The fact that he has echolalia, you can use that to whatever sounds he's echoing to shape them into becoming meaningful words that he could then use to ask for things, to express his wants and needs. And ABA is very good for that, for building meaningful communication. And then also use of the Picture Exchange Communication System, or PECS, for low verbal children, may be another thing that helps him not have as many meltdowns. Those are some of my thoughts.
And I find it interesting that that they're saying that he is better on an antibiotic, and I think that those are the kinds of things that are both helpful and useful to parents, but also can make you nuts. I know my son always spoke better when he had a fever, and as you know, we've shared on the show, and you've talked to us about that. Now studies have come out and shown why that might be, in a way that you can create that environment in a brain without having the fever, which is an exciting thing. So,
so a lot of research going on with that. So it may not be the antibiotics that cause the improvement. It may be his own body's reaction by generating a fever, which affects the heat shock proteins, which affect the brain, and he may seem temporarily better. And the other issue is, well, obviously any child who doesn't feel well, if they truly have a strep infection, for any child, if it's a clinical infection, they need to be treated with antibiotics, because strep can make you very sick and also have later complications if it goes untreated. So you want to use antibiotics where appropriate.
And you will feel better on an antibiotic, is what the point that I was getting to. I just had a sinus infection. I hadn't had a need for an antibiotic in years and years and years. But I was feeling so bad with the sinus infection, then I did the antibiotic, and every aspect of my life was better, and because I wasn't feeling well.
Exactly. So treating a true clinical bacterial infection, that needs an antibiotic. But you're talking about a relatively short-term treatment, and then you eradicate the infection. So it's not a long-term solution for hyperactivity and meltdowns. But you do want to get the child feeling better. So sometimes it's worth a head-to-toe physical exam and carefully checking the sinuses or the teeth. There are areas where there could be kind of not obvious infection. But also we know there's side effects of antibiotics, and that's why it's not a long-term solution, where you don't want the child chronically on an antibiotic, because that affects the GI tract health and all of that. Plus, if we overuse antibiotics don't work on viruses, for instance, then we breed resistance in the bacteria, and that's not good. So it's a balance.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with some more questions for Dr. Copeland. Stick with us. What do you think about ABA treatment?
ABA is the one that's documented, but I think that's what I think is important with little kids, the intensity. If this kid's 2, 3, and 4 years old, he needs 20 or 30 hours a week of intensive early intervention, working one-to-one with an effective teacher. And an effective teacher knows kind of how just hard to push, because you've got to stretch these kids. If you don't stretch them somewhere, they don't advance. You push them on them too hard, they go into sensory shutdown. The worst thing you could do with an autistic 2-year-old is to do nothing with them and just let them sit there rocking. And when I was very young, at 2.5, ABA type things were used on me, but it wasn't called ABA in that day. My teacher would hold up a cup, and she'd speak slowly. You got to speak slowly to these kids, because there's auditory processing problems. She'd say cup, and then I'd say cup, and the teacher would praise me. That's very similar to ABA. ABA in its original form is a little kids program. The whole idea is you're trying to get language jump-started. And I like the more flexible kinds of ABA. You got different levels of kids. I had ABA type stuff when I was young, but then after I pulled out of it, I didn't have to go through elaborate things of getting ready for school. I still have this habit now today. I lay my clothes out the night before that I'm going to wear, so when I'm sleepy I can just get them on. And then you have other individuals where they've got to do very structured, breaking down the task analysis. This is where, after you get out of the little kids and you get them talking, they kind of diverge into different levels of functioning. And a type of ABA program that'd be suitable for a very severe kid would not be something you'd want to do with a mild Asperger kid, because you're going to bore them to death and make them hate school.
Absolutely. Welcome back to Autism Live. We have Dr. Linda Copeland with us via Skype. She is a developmental pediatrician and a board-certified behavior analyst, and that's why we call her the unicorn, because that is a very rare thing indeed. In fact, she's the only one that we are aware of. So, Dr. Copeland, we have a question again about sleep. My son was given 0.1 milligrams of clonidine for sleep because melatonin was not working. Now that he is older, I want to try the melatonin again, but it seems that every time I take him off the clonidine, his behavior changes to 1,000,000 miles a minute. Is this normal, and how can we get him off this medicine without affecting his behavior?
That's a great question, and my answer might surprise the family. My answer is the clonidine may really be doing him some good. So, in addition to sleep problems, he might have another condition. I don't know if he's been evaluated for it or not, but he might have like an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And it turns out clonidine is not only a good sleep medication, but it's a good calming medication and can be a standalone treatment for ADHD. So the fact that when they try to wean him off, and by the way, he's on a very low dose, and that's about a starting dose for treating ADHD, even in fairly young children, like a 5 or 6 year old. So if it's helping him sleep and it helps him calm and regulate himself, there may be no particular need to get him off of it. It can be used long term. She might want to discuss with the child's physician and actually do a formal evaluation for ADHD if that hasn't already been done. Clonidine is really a pretty safe medication. And as noted, it can work both to help sleep and ADHD, whereas melatonin only helps sleep and it has no particular effect for ADHD. So my suggestion would be to consider continuing clonidine long term and not worrying about getting them off of it. It's really pretty safe, not a lot of side effects from it.
So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
My aunt used to say that. Okay, and again, not taking any huge risks by having them be on that particular medicine.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Dr. Copeland, we thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to having you back on the show next month in December. And I've said this before that people can send in questions all month, and we do have questions that come in. We tend to prefer that because I like to be able to send you the questions ahead of time so that you can know what they are. So if somebody has a question that they'd like to ask, they can be sending that in, and best to get them in ahead of the time. But we will have one more opportunity before we close out 2015, and that will be the third Tuesday in December in the second hour. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Copeland.
Well, thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Take care.
We'll
Bye-bye.
talk to you soon. Bye-bye. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was our unicorn, Dr. Linda Copeland. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back to address some of the questions, some of which I'm leaving for Dr. Grant Bichet tomorrow, but there are some questions that you guys have sent in that I want to at least acknowledge. So stick with us.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of the children and all the accomplishments over the last 20 years, I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago, and there were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Grandpichet. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Grandpichet.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I want to discuss some of the things that have come in, and some of them I'm going to leave to really talk about with Dr. Grandpichet tomorrow. Somebody wrote in though and said, "Good afternoon. As a proud parent of an autistic child, we highly appreciate the tips and lessons you provide to the World Wide Web. My question, I'm from Compton, California, with an IEP and as little as 1 month from today for my 4-year-old toddler. My wife and I feel overwhelmed in regards to what to expect or ask for. This is all new to us. I personally feel alone and find myself constantly going on YouTube while at work for peace of mind. I need guidance to handle this unique situation I'm currently experiencing. Any tips would be appreciated." Well, I so hear that, and I hear you saying that you feel alone, because that's what I think all of us feel like, especially in that 4-year-old window. Man, those are the years that you feel alone, and I'm glad that you reached out so that you don't have to feel alone. You know, I wish I could say to you, well, here is the IEP blueprint that you can go in and go, this is what my child gets at 4, and then it would be done. But that isn't how it works, because it's an individualized education program, right? So the school shouldn't be doing that, and we can't give you a blueprint. But you can, there are lots of things that you can consider. The biggest thing that I want you to know is that you're going to feel anxious going into that IEP meeting, but nothing has to be written in stone just because of that meeting. In fact, I want to encourage you, the 2 biggest things that I want to say to you if you're, new to IEP meetings: don't sign the IEP at the meeting. Don't. You will have to sign that you were in attendance, and that is it. Do not sign. I don't care if they offer you the sun, the moon, and the stars. Don't sign it. Tell them, of course, I'm going to exercise my right to take this home and read it before I sign it. That is what everyone should do. I cannot tell you how many times people have, and this has happened even to myself, even though I preach this, where, because you need to read the whole thing, because that is a legal document. It is a contract. You're signing it saying, I agree to this for the time being, right? And that you get it home and maybe there's a misprint of something wasn't put in right, and there are schools that will take advantage of that. Even though you agreed to it, if it's in verbal, in real time, and everybody agrees that if it's on the paper, that's what they will go with. And again, they are responsible for carrying forth that document. The other thing I'm going to encourage you to do is to either, if you have your iPhone, you can record it on your iPhone, but make sure that you have enough memory on your iPhone to be able to do that. Or you can go to any large department store, go to the technology department for as low as $29. You can buy a little recorder, a digital recorder that will record the whole meeting, record. And in the worst possible circumstance that you say, I don't have the $29, because believe me, I've been there, done that. Ask if you can borrow one from someone or fake it. Bring in your phone and set it up and say, I'm recording, and set your phone down and say, they will record also, so that there will be 2 recordings of it, but you will get more civil behavior from the people in your IEP if you record. I do think it's best to actually record. I want to be clear about that, because that has made all the difference for my family. A whole lot gets said later on about, well, this got said and this got said. Well, let me pull it up on the recording. And that's the thing that gives you the legal standing a lot of times to get the thing that you asked for. So those are the 2 biggest things: record and don't sign. Anything after that, the biggest, most important thing is to remember that you're saying, I want what's appropriate, not saying I want what's best. Just remove that from your lexicon for that meeting. Obviously, you want what's best for your child, but at the meeting, while the tape is going, you're only going to say, I want what's appropriate. That is what you're entitled to, is appropriate. But you can ask them when they say, well, here's what we're going to do. Ask them, why do you think that's appropriate? What are you basing your responses on? Feel free to ask questions. It's when you take the pressure off of that meeting and say, I don't have to decide anything right now here today, and I've got it recorded so I can go back over it and see, then you can go and listen. You can listen to what they have to say. Remember that there are people in IEP meetings that are about balancing their budget and making their budget, what it needs to be for them. That does not make them evil. That somebody has to be the person who counts the pennies to make sure that there is enough for the school to exist, right? That doesn't make them evil, but it just makes them not looking out for your child. And you are going to be the person who looks out for your child. Trust in that you're not going to allow anything bad to happen to your child. Trust that you can have a meeting, and there will be other people there at the meeting who will be varying shades of all of those things, right? There will be people that will be wanting to help your child. There will be people who are the bean counters. Again, we don't have to vilify them. That's their job. I don't know how they sleep, but somebody has to do it, right? I think some of them do it in a not nice way that is not good for our kids. And again, I don't know how they sleep. But we are there in a noble, noble cause. So allow yourself to relax in the knowledge that it's going to be okay. And, if you want to talk more before the meeting, I'm happy to have a phone conversation with you. You can, call me. You can email me personally at s.penrod@autism-live, and we can have a chat session. One of the things that I have found works really well for me is to have a letter that says exactly all the things that I want to say at the IEP meeting, and I read that into the record when it's my turn to speak, because it means that I got to organize my thoughts beforehand, and I get to sit down and think, well, here's what's important to me. I want to make sure that this, and I number them. I say thank you to the people that I want to say thank you to, right? That's all included in my letter, and I read it into the record, and it's usually the last thing that happens, because they'll say all of their stuff, and then they go, okay, what do you want to say? I say my thing. We say nobody's signing anything, and I look at their offer. I go home, and I get some time to think about it. Be nice to yourself before the meeting. Be nice to yourself after the meeting. Make sure that you are rested, which I know is hard. I know is hard because you're worried about it. But I want to tell you, it's going to be okay. It may not be pleasant, but it's going to be okay. It's a lot like going and getting a colonoscopy. Right? You kind of want to get it over with, but you're glad that it happened, and good things happen afterwards, and it's like, okay, I did it, right? So I want you to have some peace of mind. It's going to be okay. You have resources. I'm on your side, right? And probably somebody in that meeting is on your side too. But think about what your child might need, and if you want to talk about specifics, call me or email me specifically. Okay. Also got a bunch of messages about the Six Flags, the new pass and how it works and how it doesn't work. And I think we're just going to have to save this for tomorrow during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We'll take this apart a little bit. The Six Flags new policy asking for a doctor's note, and according to what we're hearing from people, you have to have listed on it what accommodations you need specifically. That's going to make it a lot dicier. I go to Legoland. I'm telling you, they have the best policy that there is right now. Enjoy Legoland. And let Six Flags know if you're not happy. And I know you guys are writing, is this a violation of ADA? That's a test case for Disneyland that's being tried right now. So we'll see what happens. I want to remind you for tomorrow, we have Dr. Doreen Grandpichet. She's going to answer your questions live, so be sending those in. And then in the second hour, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I want to let you know right now, Nancy won't be here with us. Keep your prayers coming for her wonderful husband, Reed Jackson. They really need them at this time. Our thoughts are with them and our prayers are with them. But we will do the show. We have two wonderful guests that are going to be with us. Sharon and Dylan Aragon are going to be with us. This is a mom and son who are amazing. Dylan is a young actor and performer who's really an inspiration. So I know that you're going to want to tune in for that. So that's all happening tomorrow. As I mentioned, we're not doing a live show on Thursday. We're going to be cooking those What's Left segments with Lisa Ackerman. But on Tuesday, we've got some really exciting stuff for you. We have an episode next week of The Future is Bright with Stephanie Schaefer that's coming. And we have Bryce Myler, who is an insurance expert who's going to be answering your questions in the second hour on Tuesday. That's our only show next week. Don't miss it. We're out of time. Until tomorrow, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.